My name is Lawrence Lighty, host of Financial Independence, the Small Multi-Family Investing. I'd like to welcome everybody. I am here from New York City, specifically the BX, the Bronx. Yes, Dalle. And I am owner of 6 units here in the New York City area, but I'm also looking to scale my business, and my areas of interest are North Carolina, Virginia, and Alabama. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dalle Garcia, the boss lady, right? She has her own business called Gold Crown Credit. And she's here to teach us about how to use business credit and loans and finances to get more leverage to build your portfolio. Dalle, I appreciate you coming on, taking time from your family, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. I really appreciate you having me here on this platform. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be here and to join us in this information share. I don't want it to be like, like just me talking, and, I'm going to share information, but I want it, engage. So if you guys have questions, feel free to raise your hand while, we're in the midst of it. And also feel free to put your information in the chat, your contact information, your LinkedIn, so we can all network, because that's what this is all about, right? Network and getting to know each other and how we can help each other out with whatever it is that we have to offer with our expertise. So my name is Dalle Garcia. A lot of people always confuse my name with Dale. So please don't call me Dale. It's Dalle, and Garcia is the last name. I'm from the Bronx, born and raised, and I've been living in Atlanta now for almost 8 years. So I've been in the real estate investments since before the last recession, since the early 2000s. And it was like a whirlwind. I experienced a lot of ups and downs. As you know, the last recession was not an easy one to overcome. But that in itself taught me a lot of lessons in reference to owning real estate in my personal name versus learning how to really own real estate in my entity name, in LLCs and corporations, which many of us either have had them for many years, but don't really know how to maximize our funding and getting access to building business credit, and to really use your business so that it can help you get access to funds. So I did a little presentation with some slides. So we're gonna go through those. So Larry, should I share the screen? I can't hear you. Let me see.
Yes, I muted myself. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just want to make sure, because I did send that to you. I'm not sure if, okay, we have it here. All right, let's see here. All right, so then you guys tell me if you can see it. Just, just with your...
Yes, I can see it.
You can see it? Okay, great. Wonderful.
Very good. Excellent. Seeing it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, so this is what we're working on today. My company's called Gold Crown Credit. Can you guys please mute your microphones and yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So my company's called Gold Crown Credit, and I started this company during I would say maybe 2009 and 2010. My son was born in 2009, and that was around the time that we were all going through disarray, trying to figure out oh God, what are we going to do? What is the market going to do? I had real estate investments. Some of the tenants couldn't pay the rent. It was the first time that I went through a situation where I didn't really know how to help myself, because I didn't have all the tools that I needed to get myself in a better position. So at the time, before I started Gold Crown Credit, before the recession, I was in the mortgage business. I was a mortgage broker, and I was a real estate broker and real estate investor. So I did that for a long time, for almost, I would say from 2001 to the recession. And I was helping other people, and I was also helping myself with my own investments. But I had LLCs and corporations, but I wasn't really putting properties in them on the deed, or learning how to use and get access to funding and how to empower it in a way where I know now. So this is what led to the passion of doing this and helping other people get this understanding. All right, so what is business credit? We're gonna start there because a lot of people know what that is. Some people do, some people don't. And please feel free to engage with me as we go. So I got a question here. It says, Dalle, are we able to receive a copy of your PowerPoint? That's from Barbara. We may be able to do that. We'll think about it. I haven't decided yet. Well, let's see. But what is business credit? So many of us have LLCs and corporation established, right? So whatever state you're located in, you more than likely registered your entity in the state that you live in, right? So I live in the state of Georgia now, but I do have entity in the state of New York. So in every state, they have a different, price range or a different extra steps or less steps to be able to register your entity. So that's the first step with being able to establish business credit. You have to have a legal entity that has been registered and that is in good standing. So you have to make sure that if your state requires renewals every year for your business, then you want to make sure that you're renewing your entity with your state, because that can, impact your entity. Can you please make sure you keep your microphones muted? Thank you. All right, so registration of your entity is very critical. Some people do this on their own. Some people hire companies like LegalZoom to do this for them. So you want to have a registered entity, and to be able to get access to funding, you want to have an LLC or corp, not a not a sole proprietor or anything like that. It has to be LLC or corp. And I'm stressing that for a reason, because of course I get a lot of people that ask that question. Okay, so we have the next step would be an EIN, of course, taxpayer ID. And that taxpayer ID number is the IRS gives it to you for free once your entity has been registered. That's like a business social security number. And I can't stress that enough, because just like you as a person has a social security number, your business would have its EIN taxpayer ID number, and that can be leveraged. So you see, it's kind of like you're duplicating yourself. All right. And we have, this is what I'm mentioning now about building business credit. These are the foundational steps of building business credit, because a lot of people may have an LLC or corp, they have an EIN, they even have a business bank account, but they haven't done the other steps that kind of put this together in perspective for lenders to give you access to funding. Your business profile is everything. What is your business profile? Well, that includes your business address. Okay, so many people that have entities most of the times have registered their LLC or corporation with their home address. So how many of you guys have done that? I'm sure that a lot of you guys have registered your entity with your home address. Now that can be dangerous, because this is public information, so people can find you if you use your personal address to register your entity. But also lenders are going to look at you as a non-legitimate business, because once they do their due diligence on your business and they find out that your business address is really a home address, then you're not really, considered a legitimate business. So a post office box or UPS box is not something that you want to consider. You really want to consider a virtual office address. That's what is respected. Also a brick and mortar. So if you have like a real estate property that is separate from your home address, you can use that address as your business address. Okay. Let me see the chat. I see questions in here. Okay, yeah, somebody put iPostal. Thank you, Ron. Yeah, iPostal is one of them. We also have recommend Regis. It's kind of pricey, but I always recommend people to do their due diligence on the kind of virtual address that you're going to get for your business. You want to be in close proximity to it, because common sense, you may want to have to pick up your mail, your business mail from your virtual address, business address. Sometimes they have forwarding services, but that's going to cost more. Okay. So we have business address, virtual address. You want to have a telephone number that is not your cell phone number or a Google number. This is very important in building your business credit and looking like a legitimate business, even if you're a real estate investor, because the telephone number is going to be registered with 411. Okay, so registration with 411 is very important for your business and for you to look like a legitimate company in the lender's perspective. All right, so online visibility, I'm just going to touch base on this. If I'm going too fast, please let me know, because I am Dominican and from the Bronx. So the accent and talking fast from New York, you can't take that away from me. So online visibility would be considered like a website, even a one-page website. As a real estate investor, having a website is important, especially if you want to raise capital and you want to network with other real estate investors. So you want to be able to have online visibility, at least a one-page website. All right, so somebody said here, Ray said here in the chat, and I'm going to share what he said. He said many companies got rid of their offices during COVID. The work from home push. Do lenders still care about home addresses? How about mailboxes? Okay, so yeah, I did answer that, which was the virtual address. Okay. All right, so the online visibility, like I had mentioned, was the one-page website. That's very critical, okay, because that's going to be part of when they do their research on your business, that you show up, you're going to be on Google, they're going to see you present. All right, so that's what's going to impact your business profile. That is the main foundation to establish business credit, okay? So once those things are in place and your business profile looks good and everything looks the same across the board, we want to make sure that you have a DUNS number. Duns and Bradstreet, some of you probably have heard, is one of the reporting agencies for business credit. And Duns and Bradstreet is going to give you a separate number that's going to be connected to your business. And there on Duns and Bradstreet, you're going to have some of the trade lines, some of your business credit trade lines reporting to them. Not all of them report to Duns and Bradstreet, but a lot of them do. So they're a reputable monitoring business credit monitoring service. We have Experian and we have Equifax Commercial. So a lot of people are familiar with Duns. And if they are, they only focus on that. So when I talk to clients, they'd be like, okay, I'm in business, I have an entity, I have a DUNS number. And that's exciting and that's great, but that's just one of the companies that report. So we want to make sure that your company has visibility across the board with not only Duns and Bradstreet, but with Experian and Equifax Commercial. It's very important, okay, because that's the component. It's not just DUNS. All right, so a paydex score is what a FICO score is to you on the personal side. Your paydex score is the score for your business credit, and it goes from 1 to 100, and from 80 or higher is considered excellent or a good standing in payment as a business and business credit rating. All right, so you want to have at least 10 to 17 reporting trade lines on each of these reporting bureaus, from Duns and Bradstreet, Experian, and Equifax. All right, so if you guys have any questions regarding this first slide regarding what is business credit, please feel free to raise your hand or to put something in the chat. All right, so I'm going to go on to the next slide. All right, so people would say, and I do talk to a lot of real estate investors, they're like, well, I already refinanced and cashed out. I have cash, I'm liquid. I don't need business credit. Or a lot of people that are in business, since I've been doing this for so long, for over 10 years in the business credit side, I noticed that they don't understand the benefits of business credit. So you don't have to need the business credit to start building it. I strongly recommend that all business owners, whether you're in the real estate investment segment or somewhere else, it doesn't matter if you're in logistics, if you're in e-commerce, you should always focus on building your business credit, because it's going to help you if you ever need access to funds as a business owner. And as a business owner, you always need access to funds, okay, especially in the real estate investing side. All right, so benefits of business credit is that it gives you opportunity money. It gives you opportunity money. What that means is like, okay, so you may be a entrepreneur, you're self-employed, or even if you have a full-time job and you're W-2 and you have 401k, you may not want to pull the money out of your savings or from your 401k or from your last investment property. So when you get access to business credit, you get opportunity money. So you can leverage your personal credit to be able to get access to business credit and business funding. This is going to allow you to be able to get opportunity money, to use money, other people's money, and leverage it to either reinvest in another real estate investment, or to use some of the funds to renovate, whatever you want to use the funds to get into a transaction or some type of deal, you have the money there to do so without having to go through the other avenues through your own private savings or whatnot. All right. Only use your, now the benefits of business credit, this one is huge because a lot of real estate investors, including myself, when you're using your personal credit to cover expenses on some of your real estate investment properties, you're going to be maxed out, and that maxed out on your credit cards for whatever you use it for real estate investing, or even for expenses, traveling, whatever you do it for the business. If you're maxing out your personal credit cards, that's going to impact your utilization. So when it's time for you to do a project and you have to refinance and cash out, and you're doing it in your personal credit, that's going to hurt you. So it's going to take some time for you to pay down the utilization for that billing cycle to impact your personal credit when it's time to do the refinance. And the goal for you to do a deal, especially when you pull the business credit or any business fund, is for you to get the funds, get into a deal, and be able to refinance and cash out. So this is a great way to shift from, especially if you're one of those investors that are using personal credit cards to cover expenses on a deal. That can hinder you if you don't have another exit strategy. So I see chats here. Let's see, do I have anything here? Can you speak about who you should approach to receive business trade lines? Yeah, we'll talk about that, Barbara. We'll get to that point, okay? So please keep your questions coming. And somebody said, Ron, my paydex score is not moving past 80, but Experian and Telescore has inched up to 87. Equifax is 375, but only have a few trade lines. Wondering how to push all of them up higher quicker. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that as we get closer to the end. But there's a lot of other, there's a lot of strategies that you can use to help you get higher, definitely. So you wanna definitely use business credit because you can separate your business from your person. You can build the business credit without using your personal credit. So that is so great when you're able to build that up on its own, just using your taxpayer ID number without having to personal guarantee that. So that's a process in itself. It takes time. But once that is done and you're reaching higher tiers, you'll be able to get lines of credit without using your social security number. So that is huge. All right. And
I have a question for you, if you
go
don't mind.
ahead. Sure.
When you recommend, I said definitely separating personal credit from business credit, in
Absolutely.
case there's any problems that
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that's what I was mentioning. That's number 3 on the bullet point, keeping the personal finances separate from business. So on the next one, where we're going to discuss about business funding, because we do provide business funding for new, even if it's a startup, with a personal guarantor, with your personal credit. But that's like to get funding immediately. That's like quickly. But in order to build business credit slowly without having to subject your personal guarantee, you would have to just do this slowly with building the taxpayer ID number with vendors. So yes, James, you can do that. I think Cinto has a question. Go ahead, Cinto.
Hey, Dalle, first of all, thank you for your time here. Second, so I just started I worked with one of the large 4 big banks, and I know I used my EIN, but however, they ran my personal credit to get the business credit. So I know maybe this was just initial steps, but they ran it like I was focusing on 2 different credit products, but they ran it twice or 3 times. They used my personal credit so I could get the business credit. This is one of the major big banks. So is this just as like an initial step, or like when does the separation take place?
Right, and that's a great question, Cinto, because at the same, it sounds like was the entity a brand new one, a new business?
Yeah, it was, yes.
So it's a new business. So when you're dealing with the big lenders, they're doing conventional lending. So they require your personal credit. They require sometimes an operating agreement or a business plan. So they go a little bit deeper with what they require, maybe your firstborn. But when you do unconventional funding, like how we do it, we don't require all of those things, but we can prepare you later on to be able to get access to like bigger lines of credit that are 6 and 7 figures, where you're able to not have to use your personal credit with the established business credit. But again, like I mentioned, it takes time to get to that point. It doesn't happen overnight. So it happens. So once that could take like a good year for you to establish strong business credit, where you'll be able to have access to those types of lines of credit without having to subject your personal credit. So
Okay.
that would be, so sometimes it can happen the other way where you want to do it faster and then you can subject your personal credit. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to keep it separate, like James mentioned, then you may want to do it the slower way, the process where you'll be able to get access to the funds, but not right away.
Okay, so the two main takeaways here are they are for credit card applications. So you're talking about specifically lines of credit, like a credit line specific to the business. And the other point is those are more conventional methods, whereas you are unconventional in terms of lending. So okay, those are two main takeaways. Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. There's going to be more to this that we're going to go deep into. So, okay, so we're going to keep the personal finance separate from business. We never want to commingle. That is critical. You want to always keep them separate. So that's including your personal credit cards and your business credit cards. The building business credit allows you to grow your company and your profits, just like we mentioned. So there's 4 tiers in business credit. And in the first tier, you're going to start with small vendors. So, of course, it's going to be small. Those vendors are going to start reporting to the business credit bureaus like Duns and Bradstreet and Equifax and Experian, and it's going to have a amount of value, and your business is going to have a valuation, which is going to show the profits of your company. And that's what lenders are going to look at ultimately to give you access to funding. So of course, as that grows, your business accessibility to funding grows as well. Okay, so we also get higher credit limits, and those higher credit limits are significantly compared to personal credit. So even if you have an 800 FICO score, you could get access to 30,000, 40,000 in personal credit, but you could get like double and triple that amount in the business credit side just by shifting to the business credit side. So it's an impact on the higher credit limits that you get. And you can also increase access to financing to pursue more complex deals, like going from residential or like small family to bigger investments or even syndication. Like we've done deals where we were able to use business funding to reinvest in some of those short-term deals and long-term deals, which we're going to talk about regarding long-term and short-term business credit leveraging. The benefits of business credit as a business owner, especially as a startup, is having reduced cash flow problems. A lot of businesses, they have to get equipment. Like we have clients that we help build business credit that own trucks or are in logistics. They usually have a lot of cash flow issues in reference to their fleet. So that would be a perfect example of people that business owners that we help, even if they're a startup with their first fleet, to be able to use business credit to help them with their overhead. Building business credit is just building a relationship with the lenders. That's very important because the lender is going to see how you monitor that business credit that they provide you in the very beginning. And if you're responsible with that as a business, you're going to build a great relationship, which in turn gives you better terms and rates and higher loan amounts with these lenders. So the goal is to be able to have access to relationships to more than one lender, not just one. You can have 4, 5, 7, or 10, that's the goal. And having access and relationships to these lenders is going to help you get access to all kinds of funds. All right, I see a chat. All right, if anyone has questions, please feel free to raise your hand. Of course, some of these lines of credit that we have are credit card stacking. That's unconventional funding. Credit card stacking, it's like if we're going to give you 100 grand, let's use 100,000 as the example. If we use $100,000, then out of that 100,000, we're able to we're able to get rewards and perks from using that on the business credit side. So using the business credit card allows you to get flight privileges, as you know, like they have American Express with Delta Sky Miles. You could do that with the business side. You could do, you could get cash rewards. There's so many things you can get. So if you give you $100,000 in credit card stacking, it would be like $20,000 in 4 or 5 different cards. So it'll be like credit card stacking. So the 100 grand won't come in one credit card. It'll be different credit cards. So some of these credit cards might have started at 0% APR. And that's the goal, that you're able to leverage these benefits of the business credit with such a small interest rate, and you can use the funds and reinvest it in something that's going to bring you a higher return. And that's how we use business credit, and also leverage the rewards and the perks to having those lines of credit. All right. And of course, last but not least, which is also something that we love about business credit, is that it does not report onto the personal credit. So how great is that? So if we're building business credit without using the social security number, not the business funding, I'm talking about building business credit slowly, the process. This building of business credit and then those lines of credit will not report onto the personal credit at all. It would only report onto the business credit bureaus. So let's say even if you get access to business funding with your social security number as a personal guarantor, those lines of credit do not report onto the personal credit. Again, those lines of credit do not report onto the personal credit. So you can use them and even go higher on the utilization, and it will not impact you personally. So I see a question from Nicole. Go ahead, Nicole. I can't hear you. Hello, can you hear me? I don't hear you, Nicole.
I don't hear either, Dalle.
Okay, it's okay. So we'll continue. So we'll come back to her.
Before you go there, there's a question in the chat from Christina Thomas.
Yeah, let me take a look.
If you close a business credit card, does it lower your business credit score?
That's a great question. It depends, because again, the strategy is to have more 10 to 17 trade lines. So now if you have only like 2 or 3 and you close one, then of course it's not going to be reporting, because having the trade lines active and open is what's going to be reporting and adding towards the metrics. But what I would definitely recommend is if you have more than 7, then you're going to see that it's not going to impact it in a big way. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. Hey, Nicole, go ahead. I guess she's still traveling, huh? All right. Well, we'll come back to you, Nicole. So the next slide. Let me see. I see the question. Maybe she says here. Somebody said, does having the same bank for personal and business credit a benefit? Absolutely. Absolutely, because you already have a relationship on the personal side. So having a relationship with the lender on the personal side, and if it's a good one and it shows that you're paying, especially if you have outstanding revolving credit cards on the personal credit side with that bank, and then you open up a business account with them and decide to do the same thing on the business credit side, they might even do just a soft pull where they're not going to do a hard pull just because they have a good relationship with you. American Express is known for that. Okay. All right, so the next slide is business funding the same as business credit? So this goes back to kind of like what Sinto touched on his question, because we have different varieties of business credit and business lines of credit and business funding. So we have credit cards, and that's business funding. We have credit card stacking, but business credit building, even though it starts off with vendors and it leads to credit cards, it's not the same as business funding. Okay, business funding and business credit is not the same. So we're going to go through each one. So hopefully if anyone's not clear on that, please feel free to add, to communicate that with me. All right, so I'm going to keep going because there's a lot of questions coming in. It says business funding is based on a personal guarantor. So I'm sure a lot of you guys heard what a PG and be like, what is PG? I get that a lot. They'd be like, what is a PG? A PG is somebody that, whether it's the business owner, It could be a spouse, it could be a friend, a third party, a business partner. This is the person that's going to be leveraged as the personal guarantor, has to have a personal credit of 680 or higher to be approved, and some other qualifications. Now, with the business funding, even if you are a new entity, even if you register your LLC yesterday, if you have a 680 or higher personal credit score, among other qualifications, you can get an approval within 48 hours. So business funding, which will be unconventional, will come in the form of business credit cards, right? So those business credit cards are going to come in, are going to be approved based on that personal credit. All right, so it has to be 680 or higher. Okay, even if the entity is brand new, you could get up to $150,000 because of the personal guarantor. So as the business owner, even if your personal credit is not that great, you can team up with someone else that does have good credit, and you can get the funding based on that person, on that third party. Any questions? I know there's questions coming in. If you want to read the questions, Larry, let me know.
Okay, Ray Woods asks, for that approval for business funding, do you have that show cash coming into the business account, like a minimum business income requirement?
Yeah, well, not for the business funding because it's just personal guaranteed on your personal credit. But eventually, like let's say, for example, you're a seasoned real estate investor. You've been building your business credit because ultimately that's where we're headed. We want to make sure that we're going to get you to a point where you'll be able to have, you can use some of the business funding that you get and put it in your business bank account and season that money for 60 days. If you season that money for 60 days, especially for like wholesalers and certain self-employed business owners may have to get a mortgage, they can use that as proof of funds that would allow them to get to a closing table. Sometimes having those funds in there 60 days seasoned. So that helps. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, there's one more question, Dalle, from Nicole. Nicole is asked, is there a strategy for creating relationships with multiple banks?
Absolutely.
If you start with limited funds and don't have the 5,000 to 10,000 to deposit in multiple bank accounts, what's the best way to establish relationships outside of making deposits in the bank?
That's a great question. Well, I would leverage business credit and business funding. And I would take, because I always tell my clients, especially if they get 100 grand or more, and a lot of people, especially if this is their first time getting access to funds, they don't know what to do with it. So they take the funds and I tell them to take 10% of that and put it in a business bank account. So that is not only getting seasoned, but if they can use those funds to create relationships with other lenders, because you could take funding from one credit card and deposit that into another business bank account and build a relationship with that bank account. And they would even probably give you business credit based on that deposit. Not like a secure line of credit, maybe, maybe not, depending if you already have a personal relationship with that lender. But I would say that do that over and over again, and you'll be able to have relationships with them and they'll be able to lend you on higher levels.
There's one more question, Dalle. What value is there to be a PG for anyone?
That's a huge value. That's a huge value. Now you already know there's going to be a risk involved because, of course, having a risk, having your name and your personal credit leveraged on any recourse is going to be a risk involved. But if you know an investor and if you know someone that's about their business and the business model sounds good, because of course your exit strategy starts in the beginning, you want to make sure that the numbers make sense. So if you're going to make a higher return on your investment, then I would say yes, be a PG. Do a separate contract with that business owner where it protects you and say, well, we're going to get XYZ once this project is done. So you could definitely pair up with business owners as a PG. I strongly recommend that. Somebody said, please put your questions in the chat. Thank you. All right, we're going to continue because it's getting late and I know you guys is like, wait. All right, so business funding can be granted as unsecured funding, like we mentioned, which is credit card stacking, and it can range from 10,000 to 150,000, even if you're a new startup. All right, if you have very strong personal credit and you have a strong personal guarantor, some of these lines of credit start at 0% from 6 to 18 months. So that would be a great strategy for Nicole to use. If you got 0% for 6 to 18 months, you could take some of that money out from that business funding and put it in to build a relationship with a lender. And you can definitely do that. And if there's a time frame, you can also do balance transfers. So we could talk about that. Like I could tell, we could build on that, on how to liquidate the credit cards that you get to be able to get the cash out to reinvest the funds. All right, so business funding requires a personal guarantor. Like we mentioned, it has to be 680 or higher. For building business credit, you don't have to use your social security number, and you don't need a PG, but to get access to funding, you do need a PG. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell. A lot of the business credit, business funding that I do for clients and for myself is just to fund deals. A lot of them don't have like access to funds, or if they do, they don't want to touch it. They want to keep the cash in reserves. So they use the business credit and the funding as down payments to get into deals. They also use the business credit and the funding to do financing, repairs, and rehabs. If you work with a general contractor, a lot of general contractors, they process credit card payments. Back in the days, it used to be harder. They used to want more, only cash. Some of them do, but with the business credit and the business funding, you can cover the expenses for the contractors, for vendors, for suppliers, utilities, and legal services. Okay, I got you, Nicole. Nicole says, okay, great. I need a detailed plan. Yeah, I don't want this to be mundane. So if you guys have any questions, I wanted to just kind of like give you some insight. There's so much creativity with this stuff because it's pretty much using what you know and kind of like drawing up a plan for yourself and how it's going to impact your business based on interest rates, based on timing, because some business credit cards only have a 2-year time frame. So you can't do long-term investments with a short-term business credit strategy. So you want to be able to use the short-term business credit for short-term investments like a BRRRR, fix or flip, or maybe something that you're going to be able to refinance and cash out. But so you got to know what you're doing and be able to come up with a plan. The great thing about business credit and business funding that I like is that it alleviates my personal credit from the high utilization, and I'm able to do the refinance cash out without having to wait for the billing cycle to update once the utilization has been paid down. Because I used to use my personal credit before for rehabs, and that was detrimental because I had to wait to pay down debts, and it was ridiculous, especially when I'm in the middle of a BRRRR. Okay, so most lenders, as you know, for your deals will give you up to 70 to 80% loan to value, and you are still responsible for the down payment, some of the soft costs, and closing costs. So business credit and business funding will give you access to that. So you don't. So sometimes you may not even have to come to the closing table with any funds at all. All right. So I see we have questions. Moving forward. Like I had mentioned before, the BRRRR method, which is buy, rehab, refinance, rent and refinance, or the other way around. So a lot of real estate investors use this method. So doing the BRRRR method with business credit and business funding, it's a win-win, or even with hard money, because when you combine all these together, a lot of the times you don't have to come out of your pocket for these investments opportunities. If you pair up with other people, same thing. I've done deals like that. They've been amazing, where I haven't had to come out of my pocket. If I had to do renovation, I will use the business credit cards to do that and then refinance and pay it back. So you have to have an exit strategy. It's very important that I stress that out with the business credit and the business funding, because again, some of them require you to start paying them back. So you have to have some type of cash flow exit strategy, or something where you're going to be able to pay them back. All right, so any questions? Somebody said here, okay, so I applied for the DUNS number. What should be my next step? There's a lot of steps after that, C. So you may want to reach out to me regarding those steps, because there's too many steps, and that's just the beginning, okay? Let's take a look here. So like I was mentioning about the exit strategies is very important, because you got to have a plan to be able to utilize the business credit and business funding effectively. You want to have a plan for paying down the debt service, and that's a priority. So using the business credit, business funding can be risky, but it can be a win-win if it's used properly. If you pair up with people too to do the joint venture credit partner, that's huge, because if you're over leveraged because you've done some other project recently, and you pair up with maybe, let's say, 3 or 4 people, and 3 or 4 people have excellent credit, they can get up to 150 grand. I mean, do the math, that's over 400 or 500 grand that you can use to get together as a group to do some type of investments, just using business funding without having to tap into other funds. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Leveraging the third-party joint venture credit partner is, or becoming a personal credit partner, like a PG, and pairing up with other investors could be also a way that you can get into deals. It doesn't have to be that you have to have any money up front or to have any, any information or knowledge. But if you have good credit, you can pair up with investors that have projects and may need you as a joint venture credit partner. Okay, so that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask me. All right, so I get a question from Ray. It says, are companies still accepting Amex on the business side since they had a security breach? Some business don't take Amex. Yeah, there's always going to be ups and downs with Amex on who takes them and who accepts them, but they still they're still offering business credit to business owners on the Amex, especially if you already have a relationship with them on the personal side. Okay.
Here's one more question also. It says, let's say you're approved for business funding and you have money for a future project. How long can the funds sit in your account until you find the right project to use the funds?
That's a great question. The funds, I would say especially if you're doing the credit card stacking with the business funding, I would say pull the funds out of the credit cards and put it into the business bank account. Because sometimes, and I have seen, and I'm gonna be honest, some of the lenders, if they see that there's no activity with the business credit card, they can reduce the amount or close it. Not really close it, but reduce the amount mostly. So if you have like a $35,000, $40,000 credit card and you're not using it and it's not active, they can reduce it down to 20 or 15. So I would say pull the funds out, especially if it's at 0%, and take it out of there and liquidate it and put it into the business bank account.
Dalle, can you stop the screen share? You finished?
Yes, I'm done.
Can you stop the screen share?
Yeah, hold on. I just wanted to share.
No, leave that there. That you see.
That was the last one that I wanted to.
That's okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay, but go ahead. So this is my contact information. I know it's a lot of information. Some of you guys are more advanced than others with the process. It's a lot of little details, but you just know that this is another avenue for you to be able to get access to funds. And even if you do have access to money, I would say, leverage business credit, don't use your own, and keep your own cash and reserves, and build a relationship on the business side with the lenders, which would always ultimately open up more doors for access to more funds.
Hey, Dalle, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I was once told that when it comes to business credit, the duration that they're calculating for the risk is different on the business side than on the personal side.
Absolutely, because there's the business side, of course, especially if you have like an LLC, you're limited with liability. So it's like, even if you personal guarantee it and, worst case scenario, the business goes out of business, not that you're trying to play tricks and games, but, life happens. So you can go out of business go out of business all the time. Then they file bankruptcy. So it all depends. You have to read the fine print for the recourse on the loan.
Who's crying and why?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can reach out to me. We could talk, Lee. I don't know if you heard me, Lee, but you can reach out to me and we could talk.
I took a screenshot of your information. I will definitely contact you. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. My pleasure. So I appreciate everybody reaching out to me today and being here today. I know it's late. I didn't want to to have this go on because there's so much information that I can still share. But I just kind of wanted to like summarize some of the bullet points of business credit and business funding. So.
Thank you, Dalle. Thank you very much. Can you please turn the screen share off, Dalle?
Oh yeah, let me turn this off. Okay.
Thank you. That was an awesome presentation. I need to contact you anyway with this. So go ahead, Barbara. We got 2 more questions, right? But before we do that, can everybody please turn the camera on? I take a picture here, please, and put your best smile forward. All right, please turn your cameras on. As I see Jennifer combing through your hair, making fun of me. That's all right. D says, hey, Cecil, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Tanisha. Please turn your cameras on to get a shot. Aaron, you there, Aaron?
He's making it.
Okay.
I was combing my hair up. I was combing my hair up for.
You just combing your hair? Okay, hey, brother.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Keep coming.
He's making it.
Yeah, kind of count 3, everybody smile. 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everybody.
I think you should do 4, 5, 6.
Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming. Dalle, thank you for coming onto the show.
Can I ask Dalle one more question? Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead,
I'm gonna close this out, okay? And then you can ask questions after that. Please don't go to place.
Okay.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna have the after party after this. So thank you again for everybody for coming to Financial Independence through Small Multifamily Investing. We meet here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Next week, we are in Women's History Month. Next week, we're going to keep on celebrating women in real estate. Next week, our guest will be Dr. Erin Hudson from Quattro Capital. So please stop on by and thank you for coming again.